Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the Penon fan. And well, on the one hand, I want to apologize for only doing it now, but I wanted to give it its deserved time to, let's say, burn in, if you believe in those things. But I just wanted to let it play for a couple of days, and then I wanted to enjoy it as well for a couple of days. And since it's an IEM that's been around for a while, there was really no need to rush into it. So I just said to myself, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy it, let it, loosen up, compare it, just enjoy it, basically. Just do what this hobby is about, or is supposed to be about, which is enjoying music with different gear and just having fun. So yeah, well, let's start. I have to say that when I received this box, I was kind of intrigued, and I said, well, what is this? Because it came just as it is, like this. And then, obviously, of course, I proceeded to open it up, and when I opened it up, I saw, oh, wow, this is the fan. And this is basically the accessories that it brings. It brings these white and green tips and these blue ones. The blue ones I tried, and I must confess I didn't really like. They are too soft, so they break up very easily. It brings this case, which I assume is to put the IEM inside, but I don't know how you're going to manage that because it's really small and I think it's just going to be cramped, so I didn't really use it. But the box it comes in is actually quite nice. It's felt on the inside. It looks everything but a box for an IEM, to be honest. It looks really nice. I wish maybe this could be something that more brands would do. Sorry. Nice. It's nice. It's a oops, what have I done here? I shouldn't have closed it this way. Anyway, I'll sort it out afterwards. Oh well. Okay, there we go. I wish, like I said, that more brands would perhaps take this different approach. And if there's one thing about Penon is, if on the one hand, sometimes I'm surprised by how every IEM has a different case. At the same time, it's refreshing. It's something which I don't know. It's just not seen. Anyway, that's the box. That's it. This is the cable that it brings, and I ended up not using its original cable only because of a small issue that it had, which is, as you can see, these ear hooks are a little bit tight, and this particular one here was even tighter than the left side. So what basically happened is the wire internally must have broken or made a bad connection. So the earphone would work, I would touch the wire, it would stop working. It would would stop working. So I just left it out and I ended up not using it. I am, however, using still a Penon, a cable supplied by Penon, which is the CS819. And it's actually a nice enough cable. And this is the cable that actually brings, comes along with the Vortex, and with the Penon Vortex, the more expensive single DD, and it just matched perfectly. Honestly, it actually, I think it just works better with the fan, to be honest, than the original one. But anyway, all of those are just, it's just not important details. As for the IEMs themselves, very typical Penon quality and feel, and everything just looks very premium, as you can see. I mean, it's a wood type of faceplate. Looks very nice, very smart, with a what seems to be a 3D printed resin shell of sorts. It's a little bit transparent. You can just barely see what's inside. 2-pin connector, and as is also common with Penon so far, at least with my experience with him, it just fits my ears flawlessly. It's almost like if I had a custom IEM. It fits really nice. I'm able to get a really deep insertion, which helps with resonances and harmonics and so on and so forth. And I mean, flawless in that aspect, absolutely flawless. So in terms of fit, isolation, quality, they're very light. I mean, these things, according to them, weigh 3 grams, and I believe it. They're very, very light. So in terms of the hardware, it's fine. The cable is fine. I had that little issue, but besides that little issue, the cable is fine. The build of the IEM itself is flawless. It just looks the part. And there's really nothing. I mean, honestly, really nothing that I can kind of falter or point as a negative. Honestly, I mean, it does have a price tag of $139. So at $139, well, I guess you maybe could nitpick and say that you would have liked that it actually brought a proper case or something of the sort. But honestly, look, it's really nothing that's a deal breaker, at least for me, and the overall look just makes up for it. Anyway, on to the important part, which is the sound. What is it like, and how does it compare to some of the items that I've got in front of us? The fan is probably the one IEM that Penon makes, which kind of has broken the mold of that Penon house sound, which is always very unusual in the sense that it doesn't follow the trends. It doesn't go in a harmonious way, or it doesn't go in a diffuse field way. They do their own thing, and I guess that's down to, well, a desire to offer an IEM which first and foremost will be musical, will be fun, will be pleasurable to listen to. And this one kind of broke that mold because they've gone for a V-shaped signature, and with a V-shaped signature, you immediately think, oh, okay, well, V-shaped, this is going to have loads of bass, loads of treble, nothing in between, and it's just going to be a mess, and it's going to be good for some things and terrible for others, and well, whatever, just another boring IEM that I can get a similar sound from something way cheaper. And honestly, you couldn't be further from the truth. If there's genuinely one thing that I have learned in the last couple of months with my experience with the Penon earphones, and also with ISN, come on, there we go, and also ISN earphones, is that forget the graphs, forget it. They genuinely sound really good, and the fan is no exception. I didn't bring out the fan 2 on purpose because, to start with, $139 for this one. The fan 2 is $279, so it just made no sense to compare to that one because it's just way more expensive. On the other hand, the fan 2 has gone down a more neutral kind of tuning, which again is something of a novelty for Penon. So what I decided to compare the fan to was the Dunu Kima, the Olina SE, the TinHiFI T4 Plus, and the Letshuoer D13. Why these 4 in particular? Well, because this represents a kind of a more neutralish tune, with some hints of a Harman kind of vibe in a very moderate manner going there. This definitely represents a more Harman vibe, but with a lighter bass presentation. This also represents a Harman vibe, but with a more prominent bass. Okay, and this is I don't want to say this is a V-shaped because I don't think it's V-shaped. If anything, I guess you could say it's U to a certain extent, But this has got a very prominent signature in the bass, good mids, but it's then very dark sounding. So a kind of a more warmish kind of, let's say, harmon. Let's for the sake of understanding things, let's put it this way. So let's say this is a warm harmon. This is a detailed warm harmon. This is a more warm harmon, and this is a detailed, brighter sounding harmon, and this one the more neutral of a harmon kind of tune. I think that will probably be an easier way to position these four. This one V-shaped, okay. But the reality is, when you listen to the fan and you listen to the T4, the similarities here between these two especially are quite notorious, they become very evident. So yeah, let's delve into it with a little bit more detail. Although V-shaped, the base of the fan is phenomenally well done. I mean, how can I explain this? Yes, it will be somewhat genre dependent. With certain genres, it will shine more than others, but the versatility that it shows across the board, the musicality that the bass has, there's just something about the whole sound signature as a whole it just works. It just works on paper or on graph. You look at it and you say, okay, but then it just works, which is the typical thing for Penon and ISM. That's the reality. So what you get here is there's a charm about the bass of the fan that it's difficult to kind of convey. It's fast, it's detailed enough, it's fast enough, it's got this nice texture, this nice musicality to it that this complements things very nicely. It has good decay. It's been a genuinely well done bass tune, and when you actually consider that the driver is not a fancy driver, in that there's no CNT craziness here, or no, it's a very basic driver. Like I said, you can get a glimpse of the driver when you look through the shell, and you can see that it's a simple driver. There's no fanciness here. That kind of attests to the one thing that many times people kind of seem to forget, which is it's not so. Yes, obviously the quality of the hardware is important, and it's fundamental that it's got basic quality traits, but it's how everything is tuned that dictates if something's going to sound good or not. And you can have an amazing driver with all the fanciness in terms of its diaphragm and its magnetic system and blah and whatever, this and that. If it's tuned wrong, it's gonna sound like garbage. And a brand that, for example, has, at least in the last year or so, been a testament to this has been KZ. I mean, KZ, if you guys actually stop to think about it, KZ, especially from the EDA balanced onwards, they've made some pretty decent single EDs, and when you consider that there's no fancy materials there in the diaphragm, then it can only be down that they actually are tuning it properly, and the IEMs actually sound really good. And to a certain extent, that's what happens here in the Penon. Obviously, I'm not saying this is a KZ level product. No, obviously not. I mean, like I said, if I've got these four here, it's because it goes up against these four products. I mean, the Kima is about $100, the Tripone is about $100 as well. The T4, the same, just over $100, 105. The Letshuoer is 110, if I'm not mistaken. This is 139. So this is the kind of competition that it's going up against. It's not going up a KZ EDX or anything of the sort. So that covers base. Mid-range. What can I say about mid-range? Well, it's got that typical kind of Penon mid-range presentation. it's although V-shaped, it's still silky smooth. There's no harshness, there's no peaks, there's no nothing. Everything has just been very well done. Vocal presentation, be it both female and male vocals, or engaging. There's more than enough fun in both of the voice reproductions. Instruments are properly portrayed, and this is where again something interesting comes up, which is, although you could argue that tonally it is not correct, that it is warm or a little bit overemphasized, it just works. That's the thing that I just can't get my head over. It just works. And even when we reach the treble, which is probably the area where it's not being it's a single DD, so you can't ask for miracles, but it's probably the area in this particular IEM that's not as on the same level as the rest, as the mid-range and the bass. Even the treble is perfectly done. I mean, there's no real sibilance that you can notice. Everything it's very relaxed. It's very it's got this very high, high end is maybe a big word, but it's got this very way more expensive kind of sound going for it. It's not a neutral sound. It's got a V-shaped sound, which you notice it, but what engages you is that this V-shaped sound has been so well done that none of the usual defects that come with that V-shaped sound, which is things are muddy and they lose detail, and then you have this aggressive high end. Nothing. Bass is very clean, although heavy and overemphasized at times. It's very clean. The mids, they remain themselves almost on the level of the bass in terms of their cleanliness. Only on very few occasions do you see that they step back slightly, but still when they step back, it's still engaging. It still marries nicely with the bass. And the treble, the same situation. There's no typical V-shaped aggressiveness or tinniness or harshness or lack of polish. No, everything is just the way it should be, in my opinion. And that's testament then to the tuning having been done in a proper way, in a correct way. As for the technical capabilities, timbre and tonality are, as I said, okay, there is that overemphasis of the bass, but still, it's never, at least for me, it was never offensive, and for them, I mean, I would consider the timbre and the tonality to be spot on, because they've focused on making the fan musical, entertaining to listen to, not fatiguing, and in that aspect, it's been done very nicely. One of the IEMs that I personally consider to have the ideal tonality for me is the 10th German Oxygen, and although this year is different, obviously, this is gonna be a bold thing for me to say, but there were occasions where I actually preferred the timbre and the tonality here. As, for example, is the same situation that happens with its brother, the Serial. Another absolutely stunning IEM when it comes to that aspect of tonality and timbre, and just having this nice old school sound to it. And that's what this has. It's got this nice old school kind of sound. Transients, and ultimately transients will dictate, sound stage will dictate will dictate imaging. They are fine. They are good. I would say. I would say there were occasions, yes, that I would have liked a little bit more imaging capability and a little bit bigger soundstage. But honestly, the tonality and the timbre and this warmness, this very easy, mellow going kind of presentation is so engaging, is so satisfying that I didn't have any issues with kind of overlooking that not a flaw, but that lack at times of that little bit extra better imaging, a little bit extra staging. I mean, by this I'm not saying that it's bad, no, but for example, yes, if I have to compare the staging capabilities of this with the Olina, the Olina beats it purely on that aspect. If I have to compare the imaging capabilities of the fan with the Olina again beats it. But again, I want to sound like a broken record, but the what it does give you is such a nice, organic, rich sound that that makes things just feels effortless. The fan, the sound of the fan just feels effortless. It feels like it's got no worries. Just everything is like, bring it on. I can do this all. This is no problem. So yeah, I think that basically gives you a good overview of the fan, what its basic capabilities are in terms of music reproduction and its technical capabilities. I mean, I want to give you a few examples of songs that really impressed me when I was listening to it. Elephant from Karel Duboc, which is a song that I listen to it quite often. The initial part where you hear the drum and everything, I mean, the fan does it absolutely amazing. Touch the Star from Soul Persona, again, the initial part of the song where you have the drums going, the fan just gets you. It just brings you in, just grabs you, captivates you, and keeps you there. Euphoria from Jeff Bradshaw is another song that it does it flawlessly. 747 from Ludwig Göransson. It's got this intro where you've got this nice sub bass rumble going to it. I mean, the fan does it amazingly well. January from Disclosure, again, another song that really impressed me. I was very impressed by how the fan was able to do it. A Lover in Berlin, yes, I was forgetting that one, from Carrie Bramness. Amazing, amazing, really, honestly, really nice, entertaining. It's just an absolute pleasure to listen to it. As compared to then these IEMs here, what can I say? Well, they all are good, and this is not, oh, this one is better or that one is worse, or that's not what I'm trying to say. But there are IEMs here that stand out, obviously. The Kima is being tuned to just be safe. It does nothing spectacularly well. It does nothing dramatically bad. It just sounds correct. But that kind of plain approach has made it also be a little bit, this is a strong word, a little bit boring. I mean, you listen to a Kima, okay, you take a song like, let's say 747, like as I just mentioned, and you listen to the Kima, and you listen to it on the fan, and I think 9.9 times out of the time, people will choose the fan. The fan has got January, the same situation. The fan will win. A song that maybe might be more engaging in the Kima as opposed to the fan might be House of Groove from Eugene Groove, or And I Will Always Love You from Christopher Goes. Also, maybe you might prefer it on the Kima, but Elephant, fan. Touch the Star, fan. Even Here But I'm Gone from Vanessa Fernandez. I mean, the Kima does it very well. Nothing, I'm not detracting anything from it. But when you listen to it on the fan straight away, it just, you want to repeat the song, let's put it that way. That's how good it just does it. The Olina SE has made a reputation for itself, so I don't think I really need to speak too much. If what you want is a clean mid-range or mid-centric presentation that has enough bass and enough highs to then complement that, and is above all a very competent IEM in its technicalities, then this is the option. If I have to look at it on, or include the fun factor, the musicality factor into this equation, then that just makes things very complicated, because I saw myself personally, I saw myself going more times to the fan than I thought it would be normal, or it would be expected. So as an overall fun IEM to listen to, I have to pin towards the fan. I'm not saying, as I repeat what I just said a couple of minutes ago, this is not about one is better, one is worse, okay? Let's keep it that. As for the Letshuoer D13, the D13 I think was an IEM that Letshuoer maybe the intention was to make it the way it is, and I'm just going to speak out of my ass when I say what I'm going to say, but I think they could have done a little bit better work on here to at least make it more engaging in the technical department, because that's where really the this kind of falls back. It's got a nice engaging sound, and it's more fun than the Kima, for example, but it just lacks detail and it just sounds dark. And when you compare it to the fan is better. Period. It is. Yes, they've got kind of very comparable bass capabilities and to a certain extent the mids, but then there's just more ability and sparkle on here than there is there. So, difficult one. Finally, the T4 Plus. The T4 Plus is an IEM which I've just recently reviewed, and I think it's very much an IEM which is to a certain extent a hidden gem. TinHiFI has lately launched IEMs which all have this very similar style of tuning. What basically differs is the diaphragm of the driver being used, and some of them have gone for a more user-friendly shell, while others, a shell along the lines of the fan, while others have still opted for that bullet style fitment, which, if that is not an obstacle for you, straight away makes the T4 a very solid option in this price range, and one that, for personally, when I reviewed it, I said, compared to the Olina, honestly, I have to say that I would choose this one over the Olina. However much I like the Olina, I would choose this over the Olina. I would choose this basically over most IEMs at this price range of around $100 for single EDs, most. And I say most because well, this exists, so this would be a very solid option over the T4 Plus. Where then do these differ? Well, this is more detailed up top, more soundstage, more imaging. Where it loses to this is in the overall musicality. I don't know what it is, honestly, and this is not me trying to push the fan, or I've got no interest in this. Let's make that perfectly clear. I'm a very big fan of TinHiFI. I love the IEMs, and the T4 Plus is definitely one of my single DD preferences at the moment. This has just got this really nice musicality about it, which just makes it very, very interesting, very captivating. You want to know more. I think the best way that I can summarize the fan is this is a mini serial, period. This is a miniature version of the Penon serial. And I think with that, I've said it all. Okay, I think that's the best way I can actually characterize and position the fan. So yes, they aren't really, I mean, if I have to kind of, okay, but no, across you have to tell us which is worth well, I definitely will exclude that one. I will definitely exclude that one. These three are definitely the best of this group that I have here. So listen to them. Honestly, just listen to the three. Choose the one that ultimately just satisfies you the most. I know it's not going to be easy because you can't. Not everybody has access to these IEMs, so it's not an easy one. But just listen to them. They all have very specific traits. That for technicalities, this for musicality, this as a great all-rounder. Let's put it that way. I think that's an interesting way to characterize these three. Yeah, and that's it, guys. So as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask away. I'll do my best to reply. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section of my Penon fan review. Let me just clear up all the graphs here for a second. Okay, and what we left now with there is the graph that at least I measured of my Penon fan. As you can see, it's definitely a great big V shape. I mean, we're talking about 77 to 90, so 13 dBs roughly of a working bandwidth or working amplitude rather. Great huge sub bass focus, which is very noticeable in the rumble that the fan has. A little bit of a bleed here into the mids, but it's like I was saying in the review earlier, it's just one of those IEMs that it's very you can see it's a V. And when you look at just purely at the graph, you expect it to be a muddy mess, to just be. And when you listen to it, it's all but that. It's really a very nice, engaging sounding IEM, and one that it's just very musical. It's just very satisfying to listen to. It's then got a nice easygoing Penon gain, peaks at just around 2.5. Then it's got that peak at 5, which usually can be a problem, but because of the way this is all back here, no, not an issue. Peak at 8, and then some extension past 10k. Just for the sake of comparison, I'm just going to show you the Penon serial, because I alluded to the fact that one way that you could characterize the fan is as, or at least in my books, it's a mini serial. And this is the graph now of the serial. Let me just align it 100% there. Okay, this is the graph of the serial. And when you see this, then you can understand what I was saying. They've both got basically the same bass, which is an amazing bass. They both got a very similar Penon gain. The difference here is that there's a little bit more control in the way that this area between 3 and 8 is done, and then there's a bit more extension up top. But overall, you listen to one and you listen to the other, and they are both very, very musical, both very correct in their timbre, in their tonality, with that coloredness associated to it. This is just so difficult to because when you think colored, you think, oh, it's going to sound wrong, it's going to sound bad, and no, it doesn't. It really sounds good. I was actually listening to a review that a fellow probably one of the most prominent reviewers out there right now, HBB, and he was saying that to a certain extent, manufacturers were just making IEMs which just kind of followed the safe route which was the kind of harmon tune, and he was talking about the stuff from TinHiFI and a few others that kind of all tune in the same way, and that it would make sense that they did that so that they were guaranteed sales and guaranteed income. But at the same time, it just kind of made things a little bit boring because everybody was just basically making copy-paste of each other. A part of me agrees with what he says, obviously, because he is right in what he's saying. But at the same time, and I've said this many times before, if you're going to try something different, if you're going to make something different, make it properly. And I think Penon is the perfect example of it. And I have to admit that I was a little bit hesitant in trying Penon and ISM products for a while, because when I was looking at the graphs, I was kind of just, okay, I don't know if this is going to be the ideal thing. And yes, graphs are not the be-all, end-all, but they are, to a certain extent, a good indicator of what is to be. And because my experience up to this point, and I do consider myself to be a person that has acquired over the last couple of years an experience which is more far-reaching than many of us. I mean, I've got a couple of hundred IEMs under my belt, let's put it that way. A couple of hundred IEMs in terms of my own creations. I've acquired enough experience to add on to the experience I already had in the audio world to be able to just say, okay, something sounds good or something doesn't sound good, and not having to let myself be guided by a pure graph. But having said all of what I just said, the truth is that the majority of the times that I have kind of taken the chance and listened to something which I looked at, or I happened to look at the graph and I didn't really like, went sour, that I kind of was very hesitant. And when you look at just purely at this graph, it's a graph which is everything but appealing, and then when you listen to the IEM, it's amazing. So I have to say that live and learn, and we are constantly in a learning process. If this whole experience with ISN and Penon in the last couple of months has taught me something, is that I have to take a bigger risk sometimes, and trust that stuff is actually capable of sounding well, tuned in an unusual manner. Although, again, I repeat, it's not an easy thing to do, because you see some stuff out there costing in the thousands of dollars that sounds like absolute, let's say, dog poo. Anyway, on to what we are here. So, when I say that the fan is a mini serial, you can now understand why I say that. Okay, let's just compare the graphs with the other IEMs that I selected. First one, the Dunu Kima, which is this one here. And, well, the Dunu Kima is the perfect example of a nice looking graph. Everything is just perfectly done, sits within a nice tight window, not even roughly 8 dBs, nice, well executed bass curve, everything very, proper and everything. And it sounds like you see, but it's not fun. That's it. This graph doesn't convey the lack of engagement that the Kima can sometimes have. It's a nice sounding IM, it's safe, it's not boring or anything, but it just lacks engagement, Next, the Japan Olina SE. Again, you look at the graph and it's going to sound well, and it sounds amazing. The biggest difference really is obviously the bass, and then you do see that although graphically there's no indication of that, but you do hear that it's more capable in terms of micro detailing, imaging, soundstage, and so on. Okay, so those two are out of the way. Next one is the Letshuoer D13, and although you do see this difference in the bass, it doesn't translate to that because it's a bigger driver, so it can apparently graph less in, let's say, what you see here in less amplitude, but the bass of the D13 is not its full or its downfall. It's them, perhaps to a certain extent, I wouldn't say that's the biggest issue, but to a certain extent, although it glides nicely into the mids and you don't really have any bleed or anything, it lacks a little bit of that mid bass punch, slam, but not really the issue there. The issue, in my opinion, is over here, where this kind of safe, laid-back approach kind of has made the D13 a little bit dark, and then there isn't much extension past 10K, so it just makes it overall a dark-sounding IEM. It's almost like, looking at this, you think the bass and the mids and everything are going to be very balanced out, like in the Chapeau and Olina. I mean, I just have to put here the Olina. You can see they graph very similarly, and so you would assume a kind of similar sound, and no, one is detailed and open and has a sensation of grandeur and open and space, which is the Olina, and the Letshuoer is closed. It's dark sounding. Okay. And then finally, the TinHiFI T4 Plus, which again has got a very safe looking graph, but when you, for example, compare it to the Chapeau and Olina, which they are graphing very similarly, by the way, this difference here, which doesn't look like much in the bass, it is very audible, and the T4 is way more full in that department. It's really a very nice sounding IEM, honestly. Guys, trust me, I have, like I said, I've got no invested interest. I'm just saying it as it is. It is a seriously nice sounding IEM. If issues with the fit are not going to bug you, trust me, you will not be disappointed. As compared to the fan, the only thing the fan, not the only thing, but what the fan brings to the equation is this musicality. This really, it's so engaging. It's honestly, I wish you guys have the opportunity to really listen to it. I mean, don't take my word and go out and buy it straight away and then be disappointed. Try and find a way of listening to it. Honestly, really try. You won't be disappointed. And I think that's one thing that brands like Penon, or brands wanting to do something like Penon is doing, of these alternative tunings, should actually perhaps consider doing more often, which is because their tunings are so, let's say, unusual to a certain extent compared to the more safe way that most IEMs are tuned. I think that perhaps making these IEMs available for testing, either selected stores in certain places of the world, or then sending these IEMs to specific reviewers which have perhaps a more I'm not going to say influential, but a more capable way of saying things as they are without any bias. I think that would be a way of perhaps making people take the risk and let's give this a chance. Let's listen to this, because if so and so is saying this is good, it deems at least giving it a chance. Anyway, the T4 compared to the fan it's got more sense of air, more sense of space, more sense of better soundstage imaging and so forth. It does have that. So if you want a good all-rounder, like I mentioned, yes, T4 definitely, and the fit doesn't bug you. If you want an IEM which is great musically and you listen to music the way it should be, you won't go wrong with the fan. Anyway, guys, this has been a really long review. That's not my intention. I always try and make my reviews as short as possible. You know how I am. I get carried away. I love this hobby. I love this everything to do with music. I'm just putting all the graphs now together so that you guys can have just one final look, and then I'll let you go. Biggest bass curve, the fan, followed then by the T4. Then in the pink here, we have the Letshuoer, which in order, when you listen to it, it's basically got the same bass as the T4 and as the fan. And then the two leaner ones are definitely the Chapeau and the Kima. The Kima being the most lean out of them all by far. Loads of detail on the Kima though, but it's although this here doesn't really show that, but it's the leanest one by far. Once again, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.